Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a basketball player and the daughter of a nurse? Well, stay tuned to our special guest. My name is Viola Pierce, Dr. Viola Pierce. I'm the CEO and the founder of VP Nursing and the Nurse Nurturer and the facilitators of Secret Suppers Worldwide with Dr. V, where our goal is to equip healthcare professionals to be financially stable to lead a full empowered life. Our goal is to come to you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to give you the fuel to crush your goals, to show up exceptional on a daily basis. You can follow us on Twitter at The Nurse Nurturer, Instagram at VP Nursing, and if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share the video. You can also visit us at our website at vpnursing.com. So today we have a special guest who knows all too well what it feels like to be a star basketball player and the daughter of a nurse. Marquetta Dickens is a current head coach at William Peace University after serving 3 years as the head women's basketball coach and assistant director of athletics at St. Elizabeth University. Marquetta graduated from North Carolina State University in 2007, where she started all 4 years on the women's basketball team. During her senior year, she helped the Wolfpack get to the Sweet 16 as she scored 989 points throughout her 4 years. Dickens received several WNBA tryouts after her graduation and went on to play professionally in Poland and Portugal. Dickens graduated from North Carolina State University with a degree in Parks, Rec, and Tourism and a minor in business, while later receiving an MS-ED in Student Affairs and School Counseling at Monmouth University. In addition to coaching, Marquetta is the CEO of Freedom Organization, a community development corporation that partners with traditionally underserved communities and or community members to pursue their own freedoms, limitless and collective power through historical preservation, economic development, holistic health, community engagement, and more. Marquetta is married to Turquoise Vasquez, who is studying Africology at Temple University. So welcome. I'm super excited to have you. I'm excited
to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. So now tell me a little bit about how it was growing up with your mom being a nurse.
I started out, I remember being really little, probably for sure, elementary school, and my mom's journey of becoming an RN. So she was in school getting her LPN. I remember, being at my great-grandma's and my grandma's house a lot during that time. And then when she got her RN, I remember her graduation. I remember her getting her RN and working shifts at the emergency room from like 7 in the morning to 7 at night. But she never missed a game somehow. And so I remember from that, my mom having a really strong support system. She went through a divorce during that time between getting her LPN and her RN. So, for a majority of that time, she was a single mom. And you know how those shifts can be, so I think she did a great job of still finding that balance. But like I said, our family culture is really all about supporting one another and having each other's back. So I never missed a beat in terms of what I needed because our family was always there.
So you never, like, as a result of her working those 12-hour shifts, it never impacted you at all. It was just normal for you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty normal. I think and I knew what she was doing. So, I didn't feel abandoned or like some kids may feel and things like that. Plus, I was always outside playing basketball. So it didn't really matter much to me. But I was in a very fortunate opportunity that when mom wasn't around, I was still around family who was, really cared and was very genuine and nurturing.
Sweet. Now, you are amazing at basketball, as I told you before we came on. What, you are I remember Jakara, who is your cousin, right? And
Yes.
so, we used to be at Parker and she was at Edwards. And I remember every time I would come to the game, I'd be like, she showed up again. She showed up again. And then when we joined each other at Rocky Mount High, I was like, well, thank you, Lord. If you can't beat them, you might as well join them, right?
Yeah, her family's from Princeville, and there's something about that bloodline, and we're just relentless in everything that we do. So it's definitely no different in sports.
Sweet. So now, where did the drive and the passion come from that made you so interested in the sport?
Um, Well, I think the talent is just naturally. I think I just naturally am athletic. What really drove me to basketball was my stepfather. I lived out in the country on Wiggins Crossroad, right there on the way to Pine Tops, and I had a basketball goal out there. And he would teach me. He taught me how to play. I learned my first layup at 5, and I fell in love with the game. Since then I was an outdoor type of girl, and so that was an activity that I could do at night. We had a little night thingy out there, and so I would play until like 11. My mom would yell at me to come in, and I just fell in love with the game from there. And so from there, like older men in the community, when I would go to like Braswell Center in Tarboro or Ray Center in East Tarboro, or the patch of land right behind my great grandma's house that she sold to Princeville Development. There was a little park right there behind my grandma's house. And so the older men in the community at each one of those places would take me under their wings and teach me more about the game. They would rough me up. And so that really just motivated me and pushed me to be really tough. And to really study the game and understand the game from a different standpoint.
That's really interesting because I have my Earth Angel, Tanisha. She talks about understanding the craft of what you do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're speakers, we're naturally speakers. But instead of listening sometimes to the information in which you receive, you you look and you compare how they are delivering what they're delivering, because we're educated beyond our obedience, but it is how they're delivering that makes the huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, what is your secret sauce, i.e., 3 to 5 leadership principles that you have discovered and executed that have contributed to your success?
Wow, most of them honestly come from my college coach. And she would always have these sayings, Coach Al would always have these sayings during practice or right after practice or right after some adverse time. And I still remember them. I give them to my team. I use them still today. And so some of them, one of my favorites was, and I really live by this, is people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Your attitude determines your altitude. So one of the other things that more so recently in my own leadership positions that I have kind of adapted is, don't let your humbleness lead to your hesitation. And the other one is really it really just ties back into, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's really tied into, as a leader, you are just as responsible for your impact as you are your intentions.
That's exactly right. That is some good stuff. And so, who was your coach?
Coach KL, the legendary
Yeah,
KL.
the legendary, right. I didn't realize that.
I was definitely blessed. She's a gem.
Yeah, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's one of those things that I really have had to, take on and embrace. And I think in healthcare that is huge, because in leading your teams, you have to understand that people are caring. They want to know that you care about them. They want to know that you're there for them. And I think that the transition into leadership is one of those things that some people struggle with, because you go from caring for the patient to caring for your staff, and caring for your staff is going to be hugely important in how your patients is cared for. And
Absolutely.
so that is so good. So what has been your greatest failure and how did you learn from it? Which I don't think anything is a failure. I think that if you've gotten up again, it's not a failure, right?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm still learning, because I mean, most people still think I'm one of my players, and they don't know that I'm 35. And so, and it's still sad to say, because you shouldn't even doubt a young person, and their ability to lead. I mean, Dr. King was early 30s. John Lewis was in his 20s. He was a college student when he started his walk in Selma, and his activism with SNCC. So my thing is that I'm still learning from, and then I know that I have kind of held myself back, is allowing my humbleness to lead to some hesitation. And so that's one of the things that I'm really working on and really going deep within myself to figure out why. Because I grew up humble. I grew up being taught to be humble, and those type of things. But at the same time, I have example of very powerful women in my in my family in terms of leadership. And so for me is finding my own balance in my own way of not allowing the perception of others to lead me to kind of hold back my own fire, my own passion, in the sake of saving face, and those type of things. Especially as a young Black woman leader, people will just in a male dominated field is sports, and even when it comes to my nonprofit, politics is ego led, no matter if it's male or female. So sometimes having to have this humble brag and remind people of who you are is a necessity. For me, I rather just focus on the solution rather than deal with other people's egos. And so me not dealing with those things has held me back in some ways. And as a leader, I know there's the things that I'm going to have to deal with. I just rather not. I rather focus on I rather focus on my players. I rather focus on the citizens that have to deal with other people's egos and that type of thing. And so I'm getting to a place where can deal with that in a way that again, as a leader, your intent and you're just as well irresponsible for your impact as your intent. And so that's something that I'm still currently working through, to be totally transparent.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think that, a lot of people really deal, especially a lot of women really deal with that. And the one thing that has saved me is, and we talked about this before we got on, that other people's opinion about you is none of your business. Okay.
Yeah.
And you just have to lead, and you have to go after those solutions. And another thing that I learned at a women's conference is that, men will have, there will be 10 qualifications. Men will have 4 of them, and they will go after the job. Okay.
Yep.
And then women will have 13 of them and be like, well, maybe I'm not good enough. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to look at it that way and say, I'm qualified. I am who I am. So I love that. I love that you are, showing that vulnerability, right? Because, other people need to see that in order to be able to know, because you look like you're this larger than life person, and that you have no failures, right? But the reality is that, we all do. Every last one of us. And so we want to, how we show up and how we get up is how we lead to the next space. So now, what are the keys to developing the next generation of leaders in your world?
I think the first thing that we have to do is listen. I personally think there should be some type of intergenerational communications. And I think that doesn't matter which generation, if it's baby boomers, Generation X, the older generation sometimes have a really hard time understanding the younger generation. And so in this particular case, it may be the baby boomers not understanding millennials or Gen Y. I mean, I think there needs to be more conversation, because who the feature, you know what I mean? So you're talking about Generation Y, who are typically college students. And then after them is Generation Alpha. And so if you don't understand Generation Y, you're going to have a really hard time when Generation Alpha gets here. And so my advice is to prepare yourself now. Because I'm saying, one thing that I think will help is listening. Well, Generation Alpha isn't the type of generation who's going to come and ask you to listen to them. They're going to be demanding things. And if you have any babies like 9 or 11 or younger, you already know this, or grandchildren, you already know this. And so we need to be preparing ourselves. But at the same time, we see that each generation evolves, even in terms of its fight for social justice or whatever particular issues we have been fighting for, war. Each generation evolves because we have entered an age of I call it the age of Aquarius, which means it's just the age of information. Whereas, baby boomers and even myself as a millennial at 35, I started out in school going through the encyclopedia to do researches and things like that. And then it was when I got in around middle school, high school, when the internet came along, and that was dial up. I remember having to have two
Crazy.
separate phone lines and, all of those type of things. But now I think it's time for us to listen, because this generation grew up and came out of the womb understanding things that we're still learning a lot about in terms of technology, which is the future. And so we need to understand what this generation needs, and it's our job of understanding that as an older generation, it's our job to help facilitate those changes into place, so that our children, our grandchildren don't continuously have to fight the same fights that our grandparents fought. I think at some point we have to come together intergenerationally and work together to get these things done.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's some good stuff. So now, what's the age range of the alpha generation?
I'll have to Google it, but I think it's like 9 and younger right now.
I got you.
It may go up to like 11.
And then Generation Y is behind the millennials.
Yep.
That okay?
No, actually, they're Generation Z. Sorry, millennials are Generation Y. Generation Z. So that's your college students, your teenagers right now. But the ones that we know that we're talking about are our college students, which we know have always been the biggest change makers in every society, every generation. You think back to the hippies and all of that. Those are college students who were standing in front of tanks and protesting war, all of those things that, you only hear about the negative aspects of like drugs and things like that. But, the hippie generation did a lot in terms of social justice and fighting for things like love and peace. That we're still fighting for today.
Right.
So
and I think that, to your point of us listening to our generation, because my parents were very much interested in me getting a formal education. But, the reality is that, and not that I'm knocking formal education, but, the reality is that we are $1 trillion in debt, from a formal education. And so my son, he's going a bit of a different route, and I just have to listen to what he wants to do and just be okay with whatever he has to do. And then if that doesn't work, then we have to figure out, our next steps. Now, let's talk about execution. How do you ensure that your plans become reality?
Yeah, so I am, I'm a visionary, right? And so I think the hard part for me in being a visionary is that I have a lot of vision, right? A lot of vision, and I can visualize a lot of different things, but I'm also somewhat of a perfectionist. So, I have to have details. I have to have things written out. I run it by a team. I'm big on team and strategizing and understanding the strategy. And so in terms of teams, okay, who's expert in these areas? I need an expert in this area. I need an expert in this area, because I know I don't know everything. And that's the beauty of it. Is knowing what you don't know. And I learned that as a coach. And so having people knowing your own blind spots and having people that's strong in those blind spots is something that I do in everything that in terms of coaching, in terms of a nonprofit, in terms of, when I was a therapist, all of those things is I surround myself with a great team of experts who are good at the things that is on this particular vision. And so if it's agriculture, I'll call my business partner, Kendrick. He'll call all of his farmer friends and we'll have a conversation strategically. What do we need to do to make sure that this vision is done? And then for me, it goes from verbal to it has to be written. I need to see it on paper. I'm old school. I literally write things out. And then it's a follow-up conversation. Then it's a follow-up conversation to the team and the people that's going to execute the plan. And to make sure that everybody's on board, everybody understands the mission, everybody understands the strategy and what we're trying to do. And then from there, we rock it out together, one piece at a time. An example of that is the work that I'm doing in Princefield, despite some pushback from leadership, and things like that. We have one of the other sayings is, Coach Al used to say, is you can't always adjust the what would she say? you're not in control of the wind, but you can adjust the sail. And so that's one of the things that we've had to do is adjust the sail. And so one of the projects that we're working on and focusing on right now is a historic cleanup. And so that's a huge part of our community day. So it's the cleanup and also cleaning up our community in terms of gang violence and doing it from an Afrocentric view versus a Eurocentric view, whereas a Eurocentric view is just solving crime, putting people in jail, and going about your business. From an Afrocentric view, we're about community, we're about healing, we're about building. And so it's understanding these young men and women and what they need and what's missing, and understanding things like adverse childhood trauma, and making sure that we have support for the parents, and because it takes a village. And those are the ways that we're looking to rebuild community. And so for me, that's a lot of detail that goes in there. There's a lot of different intricates, a lot of different parts and a lot of different playing people, different players in this. And so for me, I have to see it. Like I have to see it and how it's all going to play out. And like you said, men are like, nope, I have a vision. I have a vision. I got 2 or 3 people in play, and we're going to rock this and work it out as we go. And for me, I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable with that. I need a solid plan. And even after we have that solid plan, I'm like, okay, now who's going to do this, and this? And that probably holds me back a little bit and makes things a little slower. But at least I know it's going to be efficient.
I love that. I love that. Because in healthcare, one of the things that we have to do is we have to have the vision for the day. So the CNO has the vision for the year, the CEO, and then the directors have the vision maybe for the months to come. But then the charge nurse has the vision for the day. Right. And so we have to, write out what we're going to do, how we're going to do, and have that vision. If you don't have the vision for the day, then, without vision, people perish, right?
Yeah,
And writing that down and, not letting those things, because sometimes we are perfectionists for sure. We can relate very much to that because of the fact that, we want to make sure that everything that we do is right because we have people's lives in our hands. And so
exactly.
that is huge, huge. I love that. I love that. Now, tell me some of the things that you are passionate about, which we've learned some of those, but what you're passionate about and why?
I really think that my passion stems from my intersectionalities. I am a Black gender non-conforming woman who self-identifies in the LGBTQ community, and so of course naturally I'm passionate about social justice in various ways, LGBTQ rights, especially the rights of trans women, especially right now, and especially because there's a lot of Black trans women who lives really are being taken away simply out of fear and rejection and a lack of understanding and knowledge. And that's something that is vastly ignored. It's an issue, is so big of an issue that the NAACP is picking up on it and on the fight. So, it's under the radar, but it's a big issue. So women's rights, of course, it's something that I'm passionate about. I'm extremely passionate about leadership and leadership development. I make it my business that I create more leaders through the sport of basketball. The very first conversation I ever had with my team is about leadership development. Our second individual meeting, I didn't hit it with them with the first one, but our second individual meeting, the question that I ask is, what's your purpose in life? And a lot couldn't answer. They're like, "Oh, coach, that's tough." And so then I go, "Well, what are you passionate about? What issues that you see in the world that needs to change?" And so I'm passionate about young people. I'm passionate about developing young people, which is why I'm not a law and order type girl. Is lock them up and throw away the key. It has never worked in Black communities. I'm passionate about building Black communities and healing Black communities, and really because I identify with that community, and so does my family. And so for me, being able to walk outside and not feel like I'm going to be stereotyped or racially profiled, by healing my own community and building my own community, whether it's the community that I come from or another community that I can identify with. And that's the whole point of our nonprofit organization, is to go around and consult with these communities and to be a bridge in the gap between citizens and local government, to make sure that the citizens get what they need, so that, because we all understand that if you look at crime and break crime down, it has no color barriers. It's all about economics,
That's right. That's right.
socioeconomic status, and proximity.
That's
Um,
right.
that's what it's about. And so if we know that, then, a huge part we have to focus on is economic development in these communities. We have to do that in a way that it doesn't displace, the local citizens, the natives who have been through everything, especially in my hometown of Princeville. Most of them have been through flooding. And so we're not just going to replace those citizens with new citizens, and gentrify our community. And so that is what I'm truly passionate about. And of course, sports. And because I believe that sports and education, and that's why I like to coach at the collegiate level, because I am an educator. And a lot of people ask, oh, you should do pro. I don't want to coach pro, because it's a different relationship with your players at the professional level than it is at the collegiate level. At the collegiate level, I am very much using my master's in education. And that's what I want to do. You think about the college age student in terms of development. I'm still very much a therapist. I just don't do the therapy work myself. I facilitate that relationship to make sure that our team gets the mental health, resources that they need, and so on and so forth. Whereas when I first started out coaching, before I understood some of these things, it was more so, it was just basketball, 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 basketball. Of course, you have your motivational speeches, but it's different when you understand how the brain works and how the brain develops. And it helps you understand your players better and get them the help and the resources that they need, and understanding that you can't be it all for everybody all the time.
Yeah, that well-rounded player is super. It's huge. It's huge
Right.
as it relates to. I mean, like, you're passionate about a lot of things. I love it. I absolutely love it. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you talked about purpose and that you asked them what their purpose was in life. And I
Hmm.
think that it is interesting, in that, I don't think that I knew what my purpose was when I was younger.
I didn't. I just discovered my purpose in my late 20s, early 30s. And I
Uh,
didn't want that for them, because I understand that your purpose dictates your path a
that's
lot of
exactly
times.
right. That's exactly
And so if you're a college student, you should be thinking about your path now, especially this generation coming out of college, because they're not going to graduate like their grandparents and automatically be middle class.
That's
So if
right.
you're not going to do that, then at least be passionate about what you're doing while you're making ends meet. I'm thinking about your overall health as well. And so a lot of people my age and younger are going to have to work multiple jobs. It just is what it is. You're going to have to work multiple jobs when you graduate. So if you have to graduate and you have to work this job in your career field to make ends meet, but you need a part-time job, at least let that part-time be something that you're passionate about, something that you enjoy. And that's pretty much what my nonprofit is for me. And, at least right now, because we're just starting. And so we're building upon what we want. We have a lot of expertise, and people will help us with things like operational budget and so on and so forth. But this is my first nonprofit, so I'm learning a lot, at the same time. But my passion in what we're doing, it really helps me balance, because if I just do basketball, I can get burnt out really easy. um,
Right.
but my path, I know my purpose, and because of my purpose, both of these paths really align with what I'm here to do as a servant leader, and in terms of leadership development. And so for me, I'm just like, well, I have two paths, that help me get to where I want to be, and they actually keep me balanced and they keep me motivated. So if I can go to practice and do this, but then boom, I go an hour down the street now, and it's the same purpose, but a different passion and a different drive. It just remotivates me. It just excites me. So then, boom, I take that energy right back to practice. And then
Mhm.
it's like, you don't get tired. I mean, yeah, I get tired. I do, but I love what I do. And so that's why I can show up energetic and enthusiastic every day.
Every day.
I love what I do. I love what I do. And so I want to be that example for my players, that you can do multiple things. You can have one purpose and multiple paths. It's just about managing it and understand how those different paths fuel you as an individual. So
I think that is so insightful, because what happens is we get locked into this career right? And we are not fulfilled in the way in which we need to be fulfilled. I just had an interview last night with Brandy, and she's going back to school to be to get her DNP, and she asked me, yes, and we were talking about, how, and I was like, I love both my jobs. I love them. I absolutely love each one of them. And it gives me the energy to show up, every day, because I'm passionate about both of the things that I'm doing. Equipping healthcare providers is huge, huge, huge. So thank you. Thank you. You have been so phenomenal. Of course, Roz said that you would be phenomenal. So I was like, well, just reach out to her. I know she's not a healthcare professional, but she was the daughter of Miss Sylvia. Okay. So,
yeah.
So my name is Dr. Viola Pierce. I'm the owner and the CEO of VP Nursing and the Nurse Nurturer and the facilitators of Secret Suppers Worldwide. So our goal is to come to you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 a.m. to give you the fuel to crush your goals and show up exceptional on a daily basis. You can follow us on Twitter at The Nurse Nurturer, Instagram at VP Nursing. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this video. You can also visit us at our website at vpnursing.com.